yesterday, Elizabeth Warren went on, I guess this is a Meet the Press, yes, with Welker, and she was asked specifically about Kamala Harris's very ambiguous stance as it relates to Israel and arming them at this moment, right? She's basically repeated the Biden administration's line on this front and said, you know, I support Palestinian self-determination, but Israel has a right to defend itself, which implies that Israel is defending itself right now, which we know is not the case.
Wiping Gaza off the map.
Right. Now, Phil Gordon, who is an Obama administration alumni, was an Iran deal person, so better than the West Exec crew, is her advisor, national security advisor for the vice president, a bit distinct from Biden's team, had put out a statement that said something about, oh, we'll always allow Israel to defend itself from Iran, which felt very pointed and not related to Gaza. And Harris has been leaking things to the press since the beginning of the year, before she was even the candidate, basically saying, I'm more sympathetic, trust me, trying to distance herself for her own political career from this policy. But the problem is that what we've been saying for weeks here, this issue is something that she's going to have to differentiate herself on, if that really is the case, if that's really her position. My hunch has been she's not an old racist like Biden and is going to pursue a policy, in my view, that's more in her own self-interest. And continuing down this road is not in her self-interest if she wants to, say, run for re-election in 2028. But again, you can't just, those are very
you have to say no to Israel.
Yeah, she's gonna, for her, if she wants to really maximize her chances to win this election too, this is an issue that matters to Democratic voters. I mean, half of Democrats feel it's a genocide, and it also matters in really important states. Do you want to take that risk in Michigan? Do you want to take that risk in Pennsylvania? So I think it would be prudent politically, even if she's afraid to say, like, criticize the sitting administration, at a certain point, Biden, he's a lame duck. So we don't need to show him the fealty that he isn't, frankly, showing to her.
He's also unpopular. People hate him.
I know. And it's not like he's making the situation easy for her, right? So it might be time to kind of throw the old man overboard to a degree. But Elizabeth Warren, again, went on with Kristen Welker, and this is what she said is her advice to Harris on how she could differentiate herself from Biden.
That Vice President Harris should be conditioning military aid to Israel. Will you counsel her to do that?
Look, I want to be clear. American law already says that we give military aid only to those who are in compliance with international law. What Benjamin Netanyahu has done in creating a humanitarian disaster in Gaza raises questions about compliance with international law. The United States needs to live its values every day.
Senator Elizabeth Warren, I have more questions.
That was all she said there, right? But this is her going out there on the Sunday shows, which is when people make their case for the week, politicians, her trying to say, here's a path forward. You can say, as the prosecutor candidate, I'm going to enforce the law. Now, here I'll give you what people are telling Harris right now. They're saying to her, first of all, you're riding a lot of momentum. We don't want AIPAC money pouring into this race. We're staving them off right now by being ambiguous. We saw what they did in primary campaigns. What can they do to us in the general? Now, what they're also saying to her is that if you're going to come out and say that I will enforce the Leahy law, which is really plural. It's basically two statutory provisions, one for the State Department, one for the Department of Defense. The Leahy law, if it's triggered, basically bars the United States, as Warren alluded to, from giving military assistance to foreign military units that are violating human rights. And quite clearly, Israel is systemically raping prisoners amongst just slaughtering children in Gaza, blocking U.S. humanitarian aid from coming through as well to alleviate the starvation and immiseration and of Palestinians. So like there are countless examples that you could come up with. But the problem here is that the Biden administration has concluded that Israel is not in violation of that under their State Department review. So what she would be doing is accusing the Biden administration of breaking the law, basically implicitly by saying, I would enforce the law and Biden is not. And my point is that she'll have to do that at some point, because this hysterical policy by the Biden administration is going to go down in flames. We are sending massive ships with, I think, nuclear capabilities and our fleet to the Mediterranean right now as a way to show force to Iran. And the Biden crew has made it clear that they will not break with Israel for any real reason. So at a certain point, what is her political disincentive to distance herself from Biden? Especially
when they're already trying to provoke the regional war that is supposedly the sword of Damocles hanging over their head. And I would just point out, this is belated. It's nice for Warren to say this now. It could have happened much earlier. But also, Leahy himself, Senator Leahy, said in 2016 that the Obama administration should look into Israel and Egypt for human rights violations. We've been lying about this, and it goes a lot deeper than Biden, and it needs to stop, because this is what it is. This is the fruit that we got, which is, I mean, they say about, what, 40,000 or whatever. I mean, we know that the actual toll here is approaching a Holocaust when you talk about the people and the amount of that's even Gaza that's left. They're flattening it and turning it all into rubble. They want to remove from the map, and they might be successful in this unless this stops now. Yeah. And so I think Warren is being shrewd there in just giving her an out, or giving her an option as to how she can address this. Follow the law. She seems to have taken Warren's advice before. They have a relationship that goes back to when Harris was an attorney general in California, and Katie Porter was the monitor that and Porter is Warren's protege, was the monitor that Harris selected to oversee the settlement with the banks in the wake of the financial collapse. So I think that they actually do have a relationship, and this is Warren going out there trying to say, here's a way that you can distance yourself. I hope Harris listens, and I hope she heeds this call, because it's an easy case to make if you make it in this way. You just have to be okay with, and I have my fears that the people that are still staffing this campaign, they're just Biden people. She took over the Biden campaign, that there's a lot of probably institutional pressure for her not to do so. There won't be any courage on this unless they need it to win. And I was just reading my Hubert Humphrey stuff. Hubert Humphrey's 1948 gambit on let's get out of states' rights and move towards human rights in 1948 is what helped swing the election to Truman. But that's because Truman was getting his ass kicked. If Kamala is up everywhere, particularly in places like Michigan, they will not do anything. They will not change policy. If this gets closer and tight, and they all of a sudden need to activate that base, I think that it's there for them, and they could possibly do it. I think the people in power right now would prefer to not activate people who really give a damn, and they'd rather coast to power on people who are willing to, hold their nose, which is a lot of people, because unfortunately Republicans represent a really, really retrograde turn in themselves, obviously more so in a lot of things. So like that's the bet I think that they're going to make, and it's effing depressing. Well, yeah, I mean, this is why this is so, I think, agonizing in that way, is because right now their number one imperative is to win.
That's the reality of the situation. They feel they have a limited time period to define her as a candidate in the public's eye. They felt like they used the 5 or 6 weeks before the convention after Biden dropped out to shore up the base through Walz coming out there, introducing policy proposals, getting that excitement going. And then her convention speech was a very like, I'm tough on crime and border centrist appeal to expand the electorate to people who might be squishy about a woman president and the perception of her as being too liberal. And so cold-hearted political calculation, I understand exactly what they're doing, and it's hard to disagree with the strategy. I mean, you see it in the polls, but
well, I mean, they would win bigger if they did it, but they'd rather squeak it out.
They are doing a do no harm strategy, and there is still, again, that tension of this still being Biden's party. I mean, he's still the incumbent, but if I were her, I would say I would be asking my advisors every day, how can I distance myself from him in a way or get this out there to people? Because I don't think that she is the same guy as the guy that wanted, once floated a constitutional amendment to ban integration via busing for schools, or the guy that once shocked Menachem Begin about how racist he was about Palestinians. Now, we'll see. But right now, unfortunately, a lot of these calls are currently incompatible with her desire to win.
There's a lot of people who want to bring up Fannie Lou Hamer with regards to Kamala Harris, and I'm sorry, it is offensively complacent to put Harris in the role. Harris is the one standing and saying no to those people right now. And whether she's doing it for her own pragmatic reasons or not, that's the place that she's going to go down in history. And so if she wants this moment to be one of joy and one of this great first, you better not have something like this hanging over it. Would be, I mean, just in terms of me, that's what I'd want, but whatever.
Well, no, I agree with you.
I know you do. I'm just talking to any like staffers that might want to say like, why are you guys raining on our parade? Well, that's why.
The genocide is why we're running on the parade.
And I think it would be, I see, Emma, I think your strategy there, or what you're laying out is like right. But I think the tough thing for Harris that obviously has befallen the entire Biden-Harris administration and campaign since October 7th is the idea of, if we're going to make this a sort of law and order pitch, we also then ultimately have to acknowledge actually that international law is enforceable and is law. Right. Is, as you're saying, is law, is actually bound by restrictions and regulations and must be enforced and make it so that it is actionable, as opposed to something that is like, every so often utilized in rhetoric when it comes to places like Ukraine or other places in the world that they're willing to do that, willing to deploy it for
against U.S. Enemies or for U.S. interests, right? So I think our hopes should be, as we're saying, very tempered on this, but at least here Warren is giving her a pathway forward, and I would like to see her take it. We'll check that out in the coming days and obviously keep monitoring that.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.